Welcome to Riverside Park. On October 8th, 1883, William Duval Adams bought two lots, number 71 and lot number 95, totaling 40 acres. This would make up the majority of what would become known as Riverside Park. The cost, $1,275.55. About 6 months later, on March 25th, 1884, Adams sold those lots to the city of Lynchburg for $1,900. In the city's annual report that year, an entry about the purchase states, to acquire real estate adjoining smallpox hospital grounds. The city map, which dates between 1884 and 1891, refers to the park parcel as Riverview Park. And that was the beginning of a long and storied history of Riverside Park. And you'll hear a lot more about that history here in just a moment. Suzanne is going to talk a little bit about the history of Riverside Park. She's got a slideshow up here about that. My name's Jennifer Jones, and I'm the director of Lynchburg Parks and Recreation. This is probably one of the most beautiful settings we've ever had a ribbon cutting. And I hope if you haven't seen the Overlook that you all get a chance to come up and take a peek. And to be historically accurate, this event really should be called the Alpine Terrace ribbon cutting, because that was the original name of this space. Now I'd like to take a moment to recognize several dignitaries and special guests with us today. And if you could stand or just give a wave and let us know who you are. From City Council, the Honorable Mayor of Lynchburg, Mary Jane Dolan. City Council members Sterling Wilder, who grew up just a few blocks away from Riverside Park, and Bo Wright. I didn't see any past City Council members, so if you're out there and I didn't see you, it's not an intentional, I'm not intentionally leaving you off. I also want to recognize some city staff that are here. Fire Chief Greg Wormser, and Andrew Lagala, the airport director, Lynchburg Airport Director. And we also have previous Director of the Libraries, Marilyn Martin, here today. She's also a friend of Riverside Park. So I want to say thank you to all the current and previous City Council members for funding 100% of this capital improvement project. I'd also like to recognize Acting City Manager Reed Woodica, longtime Lynchburger. And our partner in park maintenance, Public Works Director, Gaynell Hart. Where is Gaynell? Okay. Deputy Director, I didn't recognize you behind your mask. Deputy Director Clay Simmons. He'll be speaking on behalf of the department. I also want to give a major shout out to the project engineer, Cherie Taylor. Is Cherie here? Okay. And project manager, Dawn Dye. Where's Dawn? All right, Dawn. And from the Parks and Recreation side of the project, our project liaison was Howard Covey, all the way in the back, striped shirt. And our new Park Service manager, Chris Higgins. And this is his first ribbon cutting for the department. There have been many longtime supporters of Riverside Park, both in the very distant past and more recently. I'd like to recognize them all. And I wasn't able to get names if individuals were in the crowd today, but as I read your club, if you just stand or give a wave, I'd really appreciate it. Very recent past and very recent present time contributed through the history of Riverside Park, the Lynchburg Kiwanis Club. The Lynchburg Garden Club, Lynchburg Historical Society, and they actually had taken care of the Packet Boat Marshall exhibit. I don't know if Sally Schneider's here, but she had a lot to do with that. The Junior Women's League of Lynchburg purchased a spray ground. Friends of Riverside Park helped to raise money. The Lynchburg Tree Stewards did a lot of planning in Riverside Park. The Lynchburg Museum System. Ted Delaney, I don't know if he's here, and then the previous director. No, okay. Lynchburg Rotary Club purchased the playground. Lynchburg Rotary Club. The James River Garden Club, and I'm going way back in history for this one. Okay. The National Association of Retired Federal Employees. The Little Garden Club of Lynchburg. And finally, and hopefully I haven't missed anybody, Kids Haven, who helped us put together the butterfly garden on the front side of the park, Kids Haven. All of these supporters have contributed to make Riverside Park a beloved Lynchburg park, which is now billed as an outdoor transportation museum. This includes the Fink Truss Bridge, the restored train exhibit, and the Packet Boat Marshal exhibit. Today, our ribbon cutting celebrates yet another improvement to Riverside Park. This project was identified in a Riverside Park master plan adopted in 2009. The project cost about $1 million and was funded 100% in the City of Lynchburg's capital improvement plan. Clay Simmons, the Director of Public Works, will tell you more about the details of that project here in just a minute. The impact of these surrounding grounds, these surrounding 50 acres, on the mental and physical well-being of Lynchburg citizens has been significant. These grounds hold the DNA of place, of not only a space of healing, but also of growth and joy. A study of Lynchburg history shows this space was home to a hospital, a tree nursery, the Lynchburg Fair, and in its early heyday in 1927, records show that over 354,000 people attended this park that year. So 1927, 354,000 visitors to this park. More than 12,000 people attended the park on July 4th of that year alone. Active pursuits in Riverside Park, such as hiking, swimming, basketball, and tennis, have been enjoyed by hundreds of thousands of people. My first tour of Riverside Park was given by staff member Charles Ripley 5 years ago. He brought me to this overlook, and he told me this is where he had proposed to his wife, Benita, and that it held a very special place in his heart. Most of us have heard of very similar romantic stories involving this space. Many marriage proposals and weddings have happened here. So, to kind of connect the ideas of DNA of place and active pursuits in Riverside Park as it relates to romance, I want to read an excerpt from an article in the Advance dated July 30th, 1925, related to romance. Necking, spooning, or petting in Riverside Park will, if it's done by occupants of automobiles parked in that resort, have to be done with the headlights burning on the cars. For orders were issued today from the city manager's office. So it sounds like there may have been too much romance back in 1925, but my point is good things, including romantic things, have been happening in this space throughout Lynchburg's history. A new report is out, and according to the Virginia State Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, the new top #1 outdoor activity is now visiting natural areas, replacing walking for pleasure, which ranked #1 for the last 10 years. The main reason people say they participate in outdoor recreation, according to this report, is for physical activity and exercise, followed closely closely by number 2, experiencing nature. So I think this 100-year-old park is set to accommodate the new trend, the desire to connect with nature. That's the new trend, but it's an old trend. We all know that. As many of you know, Lynchburg Parks and Recreation Department has the ultimate goal of connecting all the parks and many schools in Lynchburg with the trail system, creating a large loop around the city of Lynchburg. We'll be working on that plan in the 10-minute walk concept and a total department master plan this coming year. This will be the first time in 23 years that we will embark on a citywide comprehensive plan. It all starts with the needs assessment this winter. And I encourage everyone here today to engage in this process. Whether you fill out a survey questionnaire or attend an open house, your input will decide the quality of life that your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren experience for generations to come. So I can't implore you enough to participate in the needs assessment survey and all of the community engagement pop-ups and whatnot that will be happening. They'll be advertised, and we hope to see everybody out there. And I want to thank you all for joining us in this ribbon-cutting celebration and for celebrating our parks and trails. Thank you. Now, I'd like to introduce the Mayor of Lynchburg, the Honorable Mary Jane Dolan.
Good morning. Much of what I was going to say has already been said. Thank you very much. No, it's fine. So I'm just going to kind of wing it. First off, I think I want to welcome everyone and thank you very much for coming here today. And really the important thing to do right now is just look around, take a breath, and realize how beautiful and incredible this space is. I really want to thank all the team members that put this together. This is just phenomenal. I think as visitors come to our city, this will be a site where they will come to and really be able to enjoy the spirit of what lies here today. And for me, today is such a great experience because everything that we've been experiencing in the last several months has been sickness, sadness, and a lot of dreariness. So I think it's wonderful to be here on this beautiful day to enjoy something that is so pleasurable as the ribbon cutting of this great park. Thank you very much for being here.
Now Suzanne Smith, our construction coordinator, is going to show a PowerPoint presentation. So even if you can't see it, you can still listen to the script. It's actually very interesting. It's about the history of Riverside Park.
Thank you, Jenny and Mayor Dolan. Can everyone hear me? I have a little bit of a, okay? Am I good? All right. So go ahead and advance to the first slide, please. This is called Memories at Riverside Park. We put it together. We have tons of beautiful photographs that were taken long time ago when the park was being developed and even beforehand. On land once occupied by the Monica Nation, passing through several founding families, Bowling, Lynch, Daniel, Cabell, Robertson, tracts began to be assembled first by private parties, then by the city, where a hospital was constructed. The area was an agricultural fairgrounds, as Jenny mentioned, in the last quarter of the 19th century, and local officials planned improvements, including trees and planting lawns, in what was then known as Riverview Park, which was essentially a public-private partnership way back at the beginning. Next slide, please. In 1897, the city engineer reported using convict labor to gather and crush stone to be used in paving walkways in the park. And in 1903, the superintendent of the park, R.C. Driver, reported, having noticed for some time the steady growth of Rivermont, I would suggest that you should not lose sight of the fact that one of the prettiest parks could be created where now stands the smallpox hospital. Roads could temporarily be laid off and trees planting accordingly, so that they would have time to grow before other improvements became necessary. Such an undertaking would, no doubt, be welcomed by everybody living in the city. Next slide, please. And from 1909 to 1916, the city used the park grounds primarily as a tree nursery. Some 4 acres were cleared and planted with about 5,000 seedlings of various kinds. In addition, mature American elms were planted within the park, and preparations were made for further improvements. 162 trees were eventually planted within the grounds of the park for shade and decorative purposes. Their placement was selected to avoid interfering with the views of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the James River. A tar-treated roadway, such as we already have here now, was laid out through the entire park, giving access to all points and connecting to the YMCA Island Playground, which was down, I guess, where Treasure Island is now. Next slide, please. So one of the first planned features of the park was the Alpine Pass, a riverfront hiking path. An article in the Advance that was dated May 22nd, 1923, reports that it will feature corduroy lookouts for observation points, where sightseers may go out over the tops of huge boulders and from these points of vantage observe a beautiful river view. The path was made with salvaged flagstones which were cut into the bluff on the south bank of the river using convict labor. And here we see a picture, this is from the early 1920s, of the precursor to where we are standing now. They had wooden lookout, that corduroy lookouts, they were wooden lookouts. So they were a little flimsy and probably even a little scary to use. Next slide, please. In 1922, the city of Lynchburg made significant advances in the development of Riverside Park. They hired C.R. McCann, a landscape architect from Roanoke, to come up with a plan. He suggested the creation of a lake with a sandy beach made by building a dam, a huge pavilion overlooking the lake with a dance floor and a place to purchase soft drinks, an alpine pass along the cliff leading down to the river, and plantings to be done in large masses with trees and shrubs. He suggested that the best place for specimen trees would be to the east of an athletic field, which could be located near Rivermont Avenue. And he proposed a bird sanctuary near the road to the YMCA Island. Most of his plans have actually been implemented in some fashion. And witness the fact that the lake was realized in the form of a swimming pool, and it was then called the Concrete Lake. And here you see a picture of when that lake was actually being dug, the swimming pool was actually being dug out and constructed. Next slide, please. This stone pavilion that we have here today in Riverside Park, it dates from 1926, and it was a circular rock bandstand and concession stand that was built above the bathhouse at the swimming pool, using materials from the old pavilion at Rivermont Park from the days when it was an agricultural fairgrounds. And a combination diving and sliding tower within the pool enclosure was added that was over 50 feet tall. At its highest point, you could see it from wherever you stood in the park, just about. Next slide, please. And in the area of the old swimming pool today and all down through where the train exhibit is, a cascade waterfall from the pool wound its way under rock and log bridges through gardens and formed small ponds on its way to the James River. Around 550 rhododendrons were procured from the Peddler River watershed and planted on the shady slopes in the park garden. Lights were put in place around the pool, and an old-fashioned garden was developed below the swimming pool. And some of the numbers that Jenny had told us about earlier, in the hundreds of thousands, people attended this park throughout the 1920s. Next slide, please. Also taking place in 1924 was the planting of 89 15-year-old trees relocated from the old nursery to line the driveways for shade, the seeding of 1.5 acres to add to the lawn. Paths and walkways were extended, rustic fences were erected along the drive that would lead to the YMCA Island, and 90 climbing roses were planted. The picnic grounds were also supplied with water and tables at a grove near the swimming pool. Next slide. And then we come to the Great Depression, and what a wonderful opportunity for people to work within this beautiful space. From 1933 to 1937, the Civil Works Administration did a significant amount of work along the Alpine Pass as part of a recovery plan. They built a bridle path along the pass with guardrails to protect riders, built flying buttresses at the Alpine Terrace lookout, which is where we're standing, and graded and laid walks throughout the park. They mulched flower beds and planted cherry trees and cut further grass plots. Next slide. And as Jenny was saying, the Riverside Park Alpine Terrace was a popular hangout, such as this couple that is pictured from the late 1930s. And in 1931, actually, this rock lookout was started using the free labor of prisoners from the city farm. Rock for the project was salvaged from reused curbstones from the northern portion of the park, where it had been stored from other city projects. The rock lookout was completed in 1932 and was given the name Alpine Terrace, selected in a contest for the most appropriate name for the structure. And we can go to the next slide. Here is a picture of children playing in the fountain from those early days. You can see that it offered a play area for the enjoyment of the children, and see how faithfully it has been reproduced here by the folks who worked on this project. Next slide, please. And in the mid-1930s, the hull of the packet boat Marshall was recovered from the muddy waters of the James and brought up the hillside to its current location within the park. We think this is one of the earliest pictures that actually shows the chain link fence enclosure with the plaque and the boat sitting out here in the open air. The Marshall, as you may not be aware, is actually the only one we have left. And Chris is going to talk a little bit more about the wonderful preservation plans that we have for this artifact. And as a part of, this was actually done originally as a part of Lynchburg's Sesquicentennial celebration. It was brought up the hill and put into an enclosure in its present location. And in 2006-2007, Lynchburg Historical Foundation restored the boat and constructed the wonderful shed that we have to protect it from the elements. Next slide, please. Another project of the Sesquicentennial celebration was the planting of an oak tree to commemorate the signing of the Constitution, which was signed at Philadelphia in September 17, 1787. So this tree had been planted for the citizens of Lynchburg on September 17, 1937. And in this wonderful picture, I don't know if you can see, but they actually had a reenactment with children dressed in quasi-18th century dress with the little white wigs and the little dresses and funny coats that they wore. It's kind of cute. Next slide, please. The professional park plan originally was drawn up by the city engineer in 1936, and here this plan is. It actually is on the wall outside my office. I can look at it every day. Largely, these plans have been adhered to this very day. You can see the entrance, the drive around the park, the Alpine Trail, the location of many of the plantings, lawns, and trees that we still have within the park. And next slide, thank you. The Miller-Claytor House, one of the oldest homes in Lynchburg, dating from the late 18th century, was moved from the corner of 8th and Church in 1936. In 1937, the Lynchburg Garden Club made plans to create gardens for the house, and in 1940, they hired renowned landscape architect Charles Gillette to design a garden, which the Lynchburg Garden Club then planted. This garden later won the Garden Club of Virginia's Massey Medal. Next slide, please. In 1940, 20 acres of wooded land above the Alpine Pass was dedicated as a bird haven by the Little Garden Club of Lynchburg with the unveiling of a bronze plaque. Berry-producing shrubs were planted in the area designated as a sanctuary to attract birds. On the left, you can see the Alpine Terrace through the trees and parts of the Alpine Pass that we're standing on. The picture on the right also dates from this period. So you can see it was sort of a wild and wonderful wildland on this side of the park. And next slide, please. And towards the front entrance, we have what is known as the Grove between the entrance and Ash Street. It was designated in the late 1940s in the area where the city tree nursery had been, and it's in the right-hand side of this old photograph that dates from probably around the early to mid-1940s. Mr. George Reed, then the park superintendent, stated that the trees are fine, rare specimens and include burr, oak, linden or basswood, black oak, Japanese maple, tropical magnolia, aralia, and corkbark elm, tulip poplar, mountain maple, ginkgo, cedar, red maple, scarlet and pin oak, catalpa, sycamore, and sumac. Next slide, please. A playground was proposed for the 2-acre semicircular area between the Garland Road School and Ash Street that would have meant the removal of a large number of those wonderful trees. that Mr. Reed loved. He was concerned about these 225 trees that had been planted in this area. He stated that they present a striking picture to visitors of the park, not unlike a well-located botanical garden or arboretum. He proposed that a small fenced-in playground be placed in the center of this grove and that the trees be saved. His recommendation was followed, and the new playground was connected to the Garland Road School with a gravel walkway. And here we see some pictures of those children playing on the equipment. Again, these two pictures date from probably the mid-1940s. The train exhibit, next slide. The Western movement across our country could be said to actually have started with the Lynchburg-based Virginia and Tennessee Railroad, which was financed by one of the former owners of land, Mr. Daniel, that became Riverside Park. Through the efforts of local citizens and the Chamber of Commerce, a steam locomotive donated by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway, a passenger car donated by the Southern Railway Company, and a caboose donated by the Norfolk and Western Railway Company were placed in the park. And these comprised the first exhibits in an envisioned outdoor transportation museum. These were put in place in 1962. Of course, we actually already had the packet boat here too, but I think they hadn't quite put that together. Also, as part of this transportation exhibit is the Fink Deck Truss Bridge that Jenny mentioned. It is now a pedestrian bridge on the trail adjacent to the rail car exhibit and was installed in 1985. Designed by Mr. Alfred Fink, this bridge was originally part of the main line used by the Norfolk and Western Railroad for its trains from 1870 to 1893. It is a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark and is the only one of its kind in existence in the nation today. And next slide, please. In 1975, the tennis courts in the park were dedicated to the memory of Dr. Walter Johnson, an African-American physician who coached minority tennis players in his free time. There's a marker at the tennis courts that commemorates Dr. Johnson. He was responsible for training and coaching such tennis greats as Arthur Ashe, Althea Gibson, Juan Farrow, and John Long here in the city of Lynchburg. That plaque was placed again in May of 1975. Other improvements since then include the additional planting of trees, shrubs, and perennials throughout the park, the installation of the spray ground, basketball courts, and enhanced play equipment in the center of the park, and additions to the parking areas. The annual Christmas Lights Tour, of course, has been a popular attraction for many years. So stay tuned for more about that. And then the final slide is just a picture of our park master plan, which was done in 2009, and we can see the realization of many decades of work by local residents and officials. The repairs and rehabilitation of the Alpine Terrace at the Overlook are just one of the many facets shown on this plan. Of course, you'll hear more about our future plans from when Chris Higgins talks here, the Park Service Manager. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, we're going to hear from Clay Simmons, who is the Deputy Director of Public Works, who'll tell us about the actual project itself. Thank you, Clay.
Yep. Hey, good morning, everybody. I too have a whole list of people to thank in this project, but I wanted to talk for a second about really what the scope of work was here, because kind of from the outset, this looks like a simple job, but it really wasn't. Both of the sidewalls to this structure when we started this project were significantly out of plumb and out of true. In other words, they really weren't straight by several feet in each direction. And obviously stone structures aren't supposed to do that, so that was a problem for us. Our contractor came in and disassembled these walls more or less by hand, took them over to a staging area stone by stone and cleaned and disassembled them. We're figuring it was about 500,000 pounds of stone that was moved and cleaned by hand. While that was going on, underneath our feet, a very heavy concrete structure was assembled, which tied in the remaining historic wall of the Overlook, which we felt was safe to leave in place. Once that was set, we came back in, had a fantastic mason who reinstalled the stonework, duplicated the handrails to the extent practical, and then the fun part of the project really kind of started. During the disassembly work on the project, what we thought was originally a planter ended up being really something more once we started removing the dirt from the structure. That was when we found that it was a fountain, it appeared to be. We also then started having residents come by and bring us photographs of family members from back in the day when this was operating, and really gave us a good sense of what we were shooting for to try and do a restoration. Happily, that all came together. We're again very excited about the project, and I'll move on to the thank yous here real quick. First off, with Parks and Rec, my good friend Andy Reeder, who has retired but who came up with the project concept and scope for this work. Our Parks and Rec liaison for the project, which is Howard Covey. Our designers, who really did a fantastic plan, and this project would not go nearly as smoothly as it had they not put together such a solid design, which was Virginia A&E, and that was Bill Allen and Josh Knight. Our contractor was First Class Contracting, who again, we really lucked out by getting them. The project was originally budgeted at over $1 million, and we ended up in the high 600,000s, which frankly, I know it seems like a lot of money, but when you look at the amount of handwork that was done, it really is just kind of stunning that we were able to get this done as cheaply as we did. Schrader Stone, who did the masonry and stonework, and again, their mark is all over the structure. And really, they played a key role in how the appearance of this turned out. And they were out here several days working undercover, under tarps in the rain, when we were trying to get the project wrapped up on time. So again, they did a fantastic job. National Pools came in and did the restoration work on the fountain, and were able to construct it back to as near as we could get it, exactly the way it was built historically. Counts and Dobbins did the hardscaping and the sidewalk work that you see here, and were very good to work with. We also had our Public Works ground staff that did the landscaping and the sod work. And then we had MBP, Shep Hudson and Dale Gregg were an integral part of the project, helping us with inspection work as well as meetings and moving the project forward during construction. And lastly, I really want to give my heartfelt thanks to Cherie Taylor and Don Dye. They helped drive this project from design through construction, and we really couldn't have done it without them. So with that, I'll turn things over to Chris Higgins. I give you the gift of brevity, so. Good luck, I could barely hold still.
Hi everyone, I'm the new Park Service Manager for the city. My name's Chris Higgins. I'm here to talk today about future improvements to this outstanding historical park. Riverside Park is an amazing park for many different reasons. It has a lot of diverse features that are historical, new fun, and Mother Nature, all in one park. Historical wise, we're standing on the Overlook for this ribbon cutting today, the train, the Grand Marshal packet boat, and so much more. For new fun, the playgrounds, basketball courts, spray grounds. And for nature, pollinator gardens, walking trails, and tree groves. We throw many events here in this park for this great city, from the glow ride that's coming up very soon, to movies in the park, and also the very popular holiday lighting that we hope to bring back next year. We have a lot of exciting projects coming up and in the works for this park. We want to continue to build on the amazing features that are not only fun, but educational experience at this park. First, I want to talk about the Riverside Pool. A lot of people have probably noticed that there has been groundbreaking on it. The pool had become a safety hazard, a drainage issue, and an eyesore over the years, but it has so much potential for good. We have partnered with Public Works, that's the groundbreaking that you've seen, and the much needed drainage work has been completed. We plan to repair the walls, the existing stone decking, and restore it to a safe place, but also its former beauty. One of the really exciting things is our department has created is working with a steering committee. We wish to create a place of reflection, reconciliation, remembrance for all those who fought bravely for civil rights in this area. We're doing this by adding interpretation that's going to be included in the form of signage, video display, and also art installation. It will serve a dual purpose, not only as a place of unity, but a place of education for local citizens, whether that's through city programs on their own when they're walking through all the historical items that we have here, or hopefully school programs. Next, as we've already talked about, the Grand Marshal Packet Boat. Again, we're partnered with Public Works. We're going to be repairing the roof structure that currently has issues and protects the packet boat. But our department is going to be working, is already working with stakeholders for additional restoration to protect it, as it's the last packet boat in existence in the world. But again, embracing the educational opportunities, we're going to be adding new historical signage, video display, and possibly a model to give people a better idea as it just sits as a hall today. The train display, we want to increase the educational opportunities through additional signage and possible video displays so it can be enjoyed. And there will be an electrical installation throughout the park. We have many events, especially our beloved holiday lighting display we hope to bring back in 2021, our yearly Grow Ride, and hopefully many more events as our recreation side has planned. Next is the spray grounds. We have 2 new frogs going in as spray features as the kids enjoy the spray ground so much. They'll be installed before next season when we hopefully can open it back up. But we're also in design build of a shaded deck area around one side for families to be able to enjoy while their kids play and give a better area for them to sit. And finally, a new sitting area installation for educational programs at our pollinator gardens so that kids can enjoy. I look forward to implementing all these new features to this amazing park in the near future. But as my thank yous goes, Clay, I'd first like to thank my staff. They work tirelessly throughout the city to be able to create and improve and maintain our extensive park and trail systems. And next, I want to thank Public Works. A lot of people don't know, but we partner with them not only in maintenance but construction on many of our different features that we have here. And they play an integral part, especially in projects like this. And I really appreciate all the hard work that they put into where Parks and Recreation is the main person benefiting, but all our citizens also. And our city council and our city management for their continued support of all our efforts, because we can't do it without them. Our department wishes to continue building on the amazing foundation we have in this park, but also all the parks and trail systems we have across the city. There's nothing better than working for the enjoyment, fun, and health of our citizens, young and old, and in the future. Thank you very much, and let's go ahead and cut this ribbon.
On a count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Take a second, do the jump.